Good morning, geometry! Today we will be making a foldable in order to help us throughout this unit. This whole unit, besides the first couple of days, are about quadrilaterals, which means four-sided polygons, and all the interior angles add up to 360. But hey, I bet you all the exterior angles also add up to 360. So, I'm going to go through the steps of how to make this foldable so you can kind of just follow along and go at your own pace. That way we can use it as a reference once we start working with our quadrilaterals. So your objective today is the students will learn the properties of different types of quadrilaterals in order to construct a hierarchy and apply their properties to different problems. So a hierarchy is just a ranking of stuff, I guess. So at the top you have the most general. So we're going to start with quadrilaterals, and then as you go down you get more and more specific. Okay? So we're going to end with square, which is the most specific quadrilateral. Okay? So you should all have the outline of your foldable and all the properties that go with it. So on the front of your foldable you need to write this down. So on the white part, you write quadrilateral, four-sided polygon. I would put a 1 with that. And then if you want to label down the line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then on 2, you write the kite, 3, the trapezoid, 4, the isosceles trapezoid, 5, the parallelogram, 6, the rhombus, 7, the rectangle, 8, the square. I would try to make yours look exactly like this does. So probably put your kite a little to the left. So you can stop the video and then move on whenever you're ready to go on to the next part. So after you open up the first flap, you have a white spot up at the top. That's where you're going to glue the picture. So the picture of the kite goes right there. The definition of the kite could go next to it. And then on the pink part, you have the properties. So I would make that note that these are the properties. So I will give you some time to get those cut and glued. I apologize. I've gotten the best of the best scissors and the best of the best glue that we can. Hey, Miss Bazinski! Shout out to Miss Bazinski right now. So I've tried to get the best scissors and glue that I can find. Okay? So once you're done gluing that, you're going to highlight some key facts. So in a kite, you have two distinct pairs of congruent sides. So this side is congruent to that side, which you can see through the tick marks, but I would highlight them. And that side is congruent to that side. Okay? And then you have the perpendicular bisector of the diagonals. So here's a diagonal that cuts right through there. The diagonals are perpendicular, which means what? That's right. They intersect at a 90-degree angle. Okay? And then this diagonal right here bisects the end angles. Okay? So if you need to make that note that this is an end angle, I would do it very small and an end angle up there. Okay? I want to try to be neat. And then intersect at 90 degrees if you need to make that note. This is going to come super into play because we're going to have to use that angle eventually with triangles. All right, so if you need more time, you can pause the video, but now we're going to move to trapezoid. So once you open up the trapezoid, you should have pink at the top and purple at the bottom. Okay? So again, you're going to put your picture, your definition. So I'm just going to put a P for picture, or maybe a P, and a definition, and then you have your properties. Okay? The biggest property you guys need to know about these is we have the parallel sides, so the little triangle there indicates parallel sides, but our same side angles are supplementary. Just like before, same side interior, supplementary, same side interior, supplementary. So they add up to 180. So if you need to pause the video to give yourself time to do the trapezoid, do so. When you open the next flap to the isosceles trapezoid, you should have purple on top and green on the bottom. Same thing. You should be getting the hang of this. Picture, definition. So all we need to know about a trapezoid is their base angles. So the bottom angles are congruent. So here's our properties. Okay. And the properties I would really pay attention to are your non-base sides are congruent, which means this is a non-base side. Non-base side. Those are congruent, kind of like an isosceles triangle. And then the perpendicular bisector of one base also bisects the other base and is also a symmetry line, which we will talk about. Okay? So if you need to pause for the isosceles trapezoid, pause for the isosceles trapezoid. The parallelogram, one of my favorites, just has both pairs of opposite sides must be parallel. So you'll have green on the top and green on the bottom, and just double check to make sure that you're on row 5. Okay? Parallelograms are really nice. The biggest thing you need to know, your opposite sides and angles are congruent. So these sides are congruent. They're also parallel. And then these sides are congruent. Okay? And then opposite angles are congruent. So whatever angle 1 is, that's the measure of angle 4. Whatever the measure of angle 2 is the measure of angle 3. So notice how I've marked one with one set of parentheses and the other with 2 sets of parentheses. And your same side angles are also supplementary. All right, going to the rhombus, you should be on row 6. Shout out to Miss Rinkers here for her funny joke. What do you call a square on a windy day? Oh, that's right, it's a rhombus. Gee, why is it a square on a windy day, you ask? Because to be a rhombus, you just have to have 4 equal sides, and a square has 4 equal sides. So here's your rhombus, all equal sides. Okay. The biggest property you need to know here is that the diagonals are perpendicular and bisect the end angles. So if you want to go in and draw your diagonals, I would do that. For example, here's a diagonal. It's going to bisect those end angles, so whatever this guy is that guy. And those also are bisecting the end angles. And they intersect, they're perpendicular, so they intersect at a 90-degree angle. Okay? You might want to make a note that you will probably use, just maybe put isosceles triangles down, because that's going to help us later on in the lesson, in the unit actually. Okay? And another important feature about rhombuses are the opposite sides and angles are congruent. The rectangle. Now you'll have purple on top, pink on the bottom on row 7. All we know about a rectangle is it has 4 right angles. Because it has those 4 right angles, we have the parallel sides and our opposite sides are congruent. So you guys have been dealing with rectangles almost your whole life. So you should be pretty familiar with the rectangle. All they have to have is 4 right angles to be a rectangle. Okay? Give you some time for that. And then last but certainly not least, the square. The square is the most specific because it has to have 4 right angles and it has to have 4 equal sides. because of what it has parallel sides. Again, your diagonals are perpendicular bisectors. That's going to be important when we start working with quadrilaterals. So if you want to draw those in, those diagonals are also bisecting the end angles, so each end angle becomes 45 because that's half of 90. Okay? So if you need to go back and view any of this video, that's probably a good idea. You want to make sure that yours looks like ours, and then make sure your name is on the back, because we're not going to use these probably for another couple of days, so you don't want to, we're going to collect them back so we can give them back to you. We also plan on having you answer some questions as like a pretest, and then at the end of the unit give you those questions again in order to see how much you've learned throughout the unit. So going back to your hierarchy, we now know that everything underneath the umbrella of a quadrilateral has 4 sides. So a square is a quadrilateral. It works upward. So a square is a rectangle. All squares are always a rectangle. They're also always a parallelogram. It does not work downward. For example, all quadrilaterals, they're not always a square. A rhombus, all rhombuses do not have to be a square. It's kind of confusing, and we will talk about it a little more. But there's that old saying, all squares are rectangles, but all rectangles are not squares. How's that for you? Thank you for watching our video. Hopefully your foldable looks very pretty. If not, you can always make another one on your own time.